Hi, this is part 3 of section 2, chapter 1, points, lines, and planes. We're going to get a little practice naming figures and drawing figures. And this is going to be a little bit tough because I can't actually write on these slides at the moment. Hopefully we can change that at some point soon, but for right now, we're just going to identify what these things are. So they're going to show you a diagram and you're going to have some choices. Which building block are they showing you? Are they showing you a point, a line, a plane? Is it a ray or is it a segment? Okay, so if you look at number 1, that entire figure there, what is it? Hopefully you've correctly identified it as a line. Now keep in mind there are points there, clearly. There are segments on the line, and there's also rays on the line. But for this particular example, the whole entire figure is a line. How would you name it? Well, to name a line, you're going to use 2 letters. So pick any 2 letters you want that you see that are named on that line. And if you're using shorthand notation, you put a little line with arrowheads over top. So this particular line, we could name it line ML. There's only one line in the world that has those 2 points. So line ML is your answer. Now, how are you going to write that? Well, if you look at example number 11, this is how you should write it. 2 capital letters with the line over top with the arrowheads. So if you name it line ML, put the M and the L where the Y and the U are. Okay, now remember, that is not the only correct answer. You could have named it line LM. You're allowed to reverse the letters when you name a line. You could have named it line MN. Use a different point. Or reverse the letters, line NM. Line LN is also acceptable, as well as line NL. Okay, so a lot of different possibilities there. There is no one correct answer. A lot of different ways to do it. Look at number 2. What are we looking at? Is it a point, a line, a plane, a segment, or a ray? That's a plane. It's a flat surface. It's going to go on forever. It's got no thickness. That's what it's going to look like in your text or in your homework or your quizzes. How do you name a plane? That's the challenge. Well, you're going to use 3 capital letters, and those 3 capital letters represent points that are on the plane. And those points cannot be in a line. So randomly pick 3 points, make sure they're not in a line. I'm going to say H, J, K. That's my plane, plane H, J, K. You don't have to write the word plane. You just have to write the 3 letters. Remember how the shorthand notation looks. Look at number 13. See those 3 letters? That's a plane that contains those 3 points. So when you see 3 letters jammed together like that, that's referring to a plane. So number 2 is plane. I can't remember what I said now, but JKH, I may have said. You can reverse the letters if you want, mix them up. Or you could also include the letter I in there somewhere, but you only need 3 letters. For example, I could have named it IHK. That's also another acceptable name for the plane. Okay, look at number 3. Identify what figure that is. Point, line, plane, segment, or ray. Hopefully you recognize that as a ray. When you name a ray, the order of the letters matters. It's not like a line. The order does matter. You're going to start with the end point of the ray. So in this particular example, ray ED would be the acceptable name. Notice how that ray is kind of moving upwards to the left. That's fine. When you use your shorthand notation to name it, it is really important that you always point the ray to the right, even if it's not doing that in the picture. For example, number 10, notice how they have the shorthand notation down here. That's read as ray, ZA. Our ray for that number 3 was ray, ED. So you would put an E first and a D second with the arrowhead pointing to the right. Number 4, that's another building block of geometry. What is it? It's probably the easiest one. That's a point. It's just a location. It doesn't have a size. Don't get caught up in how big that dot is. It's just marking a spot. How would you name that point? Again, it's pretty easy. Just use one capital letter. That's point C. If you don't want to write the word point, you don't have to. Let's fast forward here. Look at number 14. It doesn't have a word in front of the R. That R is a point. So that's how you read it. That's point R. Okay, last one on this slide. What kind of figure is that? Look at what it does. It's got some endpoints. It starts, it stops. That's a segment. Name it with 2 letters, and the order doesn't matter. So you could name it segment BA or segment AB. Remember your shorthand notation so you don't have to write it out. If you want to write it out like number 8, you could, or you could do something like number 12. If you're calling that ray BA, put the B first, put the A second with the segment over top. Don't use arrowheads for a segment. Okay, so if they give you a figure, how would you name it? Use that shorthand notation, get practice identifying it, and then using the notation. Hopefully you're writing this down. If you're not, try to get into the habit of doing that, because writing it's really important, and we kind of lose that ability on these PowerPoints for right now, but I think we're going to get that fixed soon. But for the time being, please be writing this down. Okay, number 6. Now we're going to draw the figure. So we're kind of going backwards. They gave us the figure. We had to name it. Now they give you the name and you have to draw it. Okay, so we're not really going to assess you on how well you draw, but we should be trying to work and progress and get better at it. Okay, so we need to draw a ray for number 6, ray QS. What does a ray look like? If you don't remember, you can go back to your other slide and identify which of these was the ray. That's number 3. Okay, so you need to draw something that looks like number 3, and it doesn't have to go upwards to the left. It can point to the right or to the left or up or down. So draw a ray first. Okay, and then the most important thing is making sure you know which point you put on the end point, where the dot is, away from the arrow. The Q is the end point. The S goes towards the arrowhead. So if I would go back and look at this one, where the E is, that's where you would put the Q. Where the D is, that's where you would put the S. The ray is the trickiest one to name, remember. Okay, number 7, we need to draw a plane. Plane VBN. That means that plane has 3 points on it, V, B, and N. And those 3 points better not be in a line. They better not be collinear. So let's go back and look at what a plane looks like. Look at number 2. That's what you need to draw. This is how you're going to draw a flat surface, and we're going to pretend it goes on forever. Then just randomly put 3 points on there, V, B, and N. Put them anywhere you want, in any order you want. Just make sure they're not in a line. Number 8, we need to draw a segment. Segment TR. Since it's segment TR, we know the endpoints are T and R. Doesn't matter what order. So if we go back to the other slide, number 5, that's your segment. Put a T in one of those spots, in the A or the B spot, and put the R in the other one. Again, it doesn't matter if your segment is moving upwards to the right, like this number 5. You could have a horizontal segment or a vertical segment or a segment leaning the other way. A lot of options there. Number 9, draw line CE. Okay, so this is a line, you can draw that, and it's got to contain 2 points, point C and point E. If you want to put more points on the line, you can. It's not wrong. Remember, there's infinitely many points on a line. But there has to be 2 points that are named C and E on that line. So if you go back and look at number 1, that's a line. You need 2 points on that line, point C and point E. So if you want to, make point M point C and make point N point E. If you want to leave point L on there, you can. If you want to put them in different spots, you can. Lots of options. Okay, last one for this slide. Again, it's array. This time it's the shorthand notation. We're using more examples with rays because rays are the trickier ones. That's ray ZA. So draw yourself a ray. Make it go any direction you want. Just make sure that that endpoint is point Z. That's the only thing you got to watch out for there. So if you go back to number 3 again, make sure the Z goes down where the E is. Make sure the A is where the D is. And again, if you want to put other points on this ray, you can. That doesn't make it wrong. Okay, so same thing with 11 through 15. You're going to draw these figures, and we encourage you to do that here. Practice drawing them. Can you read the shorthand notation? That's the challenge here. That's the only thing different from this slide compared to the other one. Number 11, that's line Y, U. Just draw yourself a line, put the points Y and U somewhere on there. If you want more points on it, go ahead. It's not wrong. Number 12, that's segment LJ. The endpoints need to be points L and points J. If you want to reverse them, you can. If you want to put points and name them in between, you can. Number 13, how do you read that? That's plane WPC. That's the only plane in the world that contains those 3 points. So draw yourself a plane, put those 3 points on there somewhere. Just remember, don't put them in a line. They have to be non-collinear points. Okay, number 14 is point R. Just draw yourself a little dot and put an R beside it. Not a whole lot of variation there. Last one, it's the complicated one again. That's the ray. So draw yourself a ray. Wherever the dot is, that endpoint, that's point B. Put G anywhere else on that ray. And again, your ray can point any direction you want. Okay, that's the last video we have for section 1, 2. If you guys have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask, but make sure that you're practicing drawing these.